All right then. So time for another nightly segment. I had something else in mind for this, but considering the gravity of what's just happened, I thought that this was more significant. Anyhow, let's get to the story from the AP. U.S. hits hard in militias in Iraq and Syria retaliating for fatal drone attack. So in the last few days, there was a drone attack over in Jordan, was it? Where essentially a drone from Iraq, essentially a drone piloted by or it was flown or remote controlled by Iranian-backed militias in Iraq. It wasn't Iraq itself; it was a militia in Iraq targeting the base. Anyhow, the drone flies in the base, kills 3 American soldiers, wounds 34 others, something like that. Anyhow, it seems like it's taken a couple days to prep a response, but by now the response is being made. The U.S. is dropping a whole lot of bombs into Iraq and Syria. So far, it doesn't seem like we're bombing Iran, but that could always change. I mean, this thing just keeps getting escalated so far, and we'll see where it goes. Anyhow, let's read the story. The U.S. military launched an air assault on dozens of sites in Iraq and Syria used by Iranian-backed militias and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Friday in the opening salvo of retaliation for the drone strike that killed 3 U.S. troops in Jordan last week. The massive barrage of strikes hit more than 85 targets at 7 locations, including command and control headquarters, intelligence centers, rockets and missiles, drone and ammunition storage sites, and other facilities that were connected to the militias or the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps Quds Force, the Guard's expeditionary unit that handles Tehran's relationship with and arming of regional militias. And President Joe Biden made it clear in a statement that there will be more to come. So we've hit 85 targets in 2 foreign countries that we're not officially at war with, and it sounds like there are more bombs that are planning to be dropped. All right. The U.S. strikes appeared to stop short of directly targeting Iran or senior leaders of the Revolutionary Guard Quds Force within its borders, as the U.S. tries to prevent the conflict from escalating even further. Iran has denied it was behind the Jordan attack. Well, of course it was going to deny it. They don't want things to escalate either. I don't know. I kind of feel like the U.S. does want things to escalate because there's this theory for a while that, and it's a decent theory, that the U.S. has wanted to go after Iran and take it over and regime change it. I mean, we saw tweets by people like Lindsey Graham coming out basically saying, we have to go attack Tehran or attack Iran itself. Moving on. It was unclear what the impact will be of the strikes. Days of U.S. warnings may have sent militia members scattering into hiding, with multiple groups operating at various locations in several countries. A knockout blow is unlikely. Well, that's true. So the issue is to get these bombers into place, and we use B-1 bombers, or at least part of it. Yeah, you have to reroute personnel, you have to reroute supplies, reroute aerial refueling tankers or big planes that refuel other planes in the sky. There's enough logistics movement that it's theoretically possible, if not likely, that these militias, or at least Iranian intelligence, would have noticed that, hey, stuff's changing and looks like, they're planning on bombing you. But at the same time, intelligence is a two-way street. If these guys saw the bombs were on their way, or that the U.S. was making these preparations, they probably decided to bug out. They probably decided to start preparing their depots, their supplies, their weapons, moving stuff around, getting themselves safe. So while we may have bombed things that were suboptimal targets, like, we would also be watching them as they're trying to flee and find cover days in advance. So essentially, whatever their backup plans were, we got to see them put those plans in action. So again, intelligence is a two-way street. They already hid once. How many times can they keep hiding before a bomb eventually finds them? Man, that's a scary prospect. All right, so it seems like one of the Iran-backed militias, Kataib Hezbollah, said it was suspending attacks on American troops, but you have others that have vowed to continue the fight, casting themselves as champions of the Palestinian cause while the war in Gaza shows no sign of ending. We got a statement from Biden. Our response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing. Let all those who might seek to do us harm know this. If you harm an American, we will respond. Well, yeah, but didn't we kind of provoke this by basically, like, is it a coincidence that Iran put its country next to all our military bases? Or is it more of a coincidence that we put all the military bases around Iran? I mean, the reason why Iran funds terror networks is because it's essentially like, it's like how piracy used to work. Well, privateering, really. You give a letter of marque to an organization. You basically tell them, hey, we want you to go attack our enemies on our behalf. You can raid their shipping, do whatever you want, and we will claim deniability. It will say it's all on you if you get caught and captured, but whatever you do on your own, you get to claim as your own. Essentially, that's what these kind of groups are. They're being used as they're not pirates, but they are terrorists. And so Iran has geopolitical goals that it's willing to use these organizations or militias for. National Security Council. Tired. National Security Council spokesman John Kirby said the targets were carefully selected to avoid civilian casualties and based on clear, irrefutable evidence that they were connected to attacks on U.S. personnel in the region. The strike took place over about 30 minutes, and three of the sites struck were in Iraq, 4 were in Syria, and Lieutenant Douglas Sims, director, said, my word, words are not working for me right now. U.S. Central Command said the assault involved more than 125 precise munitions. That's essentially just smart bombs or whatever. And they were delivered by numerous aircraft, including long-range B-1 bombers flown from the United States. Sims said weather was a factor as the U.S. planned the strikes in order to allow the U.S. to confirm it was hitting the right targets and avoiding civilian casualties. I mean, I'm sure they made an effort. But bombs are indiscriminate weapons. At a certain point, you say, we've minimized enough casualties, we'll just accept whatever happens as collateral. It's not clear, however, whether militia members were killed. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Syrian state media reported that there were casualties but did not give a number. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights reported that 18 militants were killed in the Syria strikes. Yeah. Iraqi army spokesman Yahya Razul, I think that's how you pronounce that. Man, I took a minute to try and figure out how to say that. Yahya Razul said in a statement that the city of Al-Qaim and the areas along the country's border with Syria have been hit by U.S. airstrikes. The strikes, he said, constitute a violation of Iraqi sovereignty and undermine the efforts of the Iraqi government, posing a threat that will pull Iraq and the region to undesirable consequences. Well, they're barely even a country as it is. It made no sense even when Saddam Hussein ran. He was at least a dictator who kept things together. It's three ethnic groups, essentially. That's Kurds, Arabs, and Persians, and 2 major religions, Sunni Muslim, Shia Muslim. And none of these groups like each other. Right now, I think Iraq is mostly, in many ways, is highly influenced by Iran because the majority of the population are Persian Shia. So therefore, Iran has a lot of pull in this country ever since we got rid of Saddam Hussein, who was a Sunni Arab. Anyhow, just Friday morning, Iran's hard-like president yawns again. This guy's name is Ebrahim Raisi. Reiterated earlier promises by Tehran to potentially retaliate for any U.S. strikes targeting its interests. We will not start a war, but if a cruel force wants to bully us, the Islamic Republic of Iran will give a strong response. We'll see what that means. In a statement this week, we already confirmed this, that they're going to suspend their operations. But this other group, Harakat al-Nujaba, said they're going to continue their military operations. Which is great. Some of the militias have been a threat to the U.S., but the groups intensified their assaults in the wake of Israel's Hamas war. Yeah, because this is basically like the world's changing, everyone senses it, and everyone's getting in on it. It's the breaking point. We are, in many ways, in my opinion, in a historical watershed moment where we're seeing the world order, I guess, or the way things that we used to, the way that things normally work is changing and quite rapidly. So it's kind of like a watershed or like a waterfall, you know? You're just gradually approaching this thing and suddenly you go over and it's no longer the same kind of motion or same circumstances. Speaking to reporters on Thursday, Lloyd Austin said this is a dangerous moment in the Middle East The U.S. will take all necessary actions to defend its interests and people, and be warned. At this point, it's time to take away even more capability than we've taken in the past. Oh, that's reassuring. So we're gonna basically hit them harder than we've ever hit them before. Is kind of what it sounds like. As of Tuesday, Iran-backed militia groups had launched 166 attacks on U.S. military installations since October 18th, including 67 in Iraq, 98 in Syria, and now 1 in Jordan. Oh my god. None of this is good. The U.S., meanwhile, has bolstered defenses at Tower 22, the base in Jordan that was attacked by Iran-backed militants. The attack, which also injured more than 40 service members, largely Army National Guard, was the first to result in U.S. combat deaths from Iran-backed militias since the war between Israel and Hamas broke out. The Iraqi border is only 6 miles away from where they were in Jordan. That is unfortunate. And U.S. officials said the military had taken additional self-defense strikes inside Yemen Friday against Houthi military targets deemed an imminent threat. Al-Masirah, a Houthi-run satellite news channel, said British and American forces conducted 3 strikes in northern Yemen province of Hajjah, a Houthi stronghold. So yeah, that's the end of the article. I don't know, man. World War III, World War Middle East. Is it going to be a regional war, or is it going to suck so much more in? When you think about it logically, there are conflicts all over the world. I mean, technically the stuff in Azerbaijan and Armenia kind of ended, but it didn't end well, and who knows, that could always spark back up. More chaos you have going around, more likely people are to try and settle a score they feel like didn't end their way. Ethiopia is kind of upset. They're a landlocked country, and they're looking to get some seaport access. Probably they might try to reconquer parts of Eritrea, but if we get World War III or enough chaos, they might just take Djibouti. It's a city-state harbor right on their border, and they could take it, and they could get access to the ocean, and no longer be dependent on all these other countries. And then there's also the normal conflict that they have, but with Sudan, or is it Somalia? I can't tell. Check the map. It's one of those countries. See, Google Maps will solve the answers. We just gotta zoom out and look at Africa, and I'll be able to know what it is. There we go. All right, so Ethiopia is here. So yeah, they might want to conquer this strip of land in Eritrea. I mean, Eritrea used to belong to them for like a period of 30 years. It broke away. They might try to take it back. The guy who runs Eritrea is kind of a dictator that the international community doesn't like him. The people are pressed into military service and then not allowed to leave. So the people don't really like him. So it may not even be hard for them to take it. Somalia here, like the northern part, apparently has its own sort of government that they see themselves as separate from the rest of Somalia. But who knows if that's going to last? And Somalia itself is in a general civil war, and this whole part of Ethiopia is some ethnic Somali, and they want to split off and join Somalia, but Somalia is in a civil war, so good luck with that. Let's see, Sudan, I believe, is in a civil war right now, where you have rebel forces essentially trying to get control of the country. They're paramilitaries, whereas the normal government, not paramilitary in the sense that American politicians keep making it out to be actual paramilitaries, like actual groups that have pseudo-political connections. More like closer to Hezbollah, if anything. Anyhow, you have Sudan. The normal government is basically very upset. Ethiopia is also building a massive dam that feeds in the tributaries that go to the Nile. Egypt is upset about that, but it gets complicated because Sudan has relationships. Well, Egypt wants Sudan to side with them, but they're in a civil war, so they can't really do much. So that's complicating things. We obviously everyone knows Israel, Gaza, Hamas, India and Pakistan never liked each other, but that doesn't seem to be the biggest concern right now. China and Taiwan, that could always go off. Never know. Been some testy actions, but we don't know how it'll end. Let's keep looking around. Obviously we have Iran here, Yemen here. They're trying to block the ocean or block the Red Sea. We keep having to hit Houthi targets in Yemen because the Houthis are the one doing all this in Yemen. Let's keep looking around. Ukraine. We all know about Ukraine. That could explode into war. So that's another war we have going on. I already mentioned Azerbaijan and Armenia. That's over here. Armenia, Azerbaijan. Where's that breakaway region? Can't see it. Oh well. Let's see. Over here we have Venezuela and Guyana. Oh, look, Google Maps updated to show the line of where um, Essequibo is supposed to be. Venezuela claims to own this. They haven't functionally controlled it in decades. It's generally been considered to be part of Guyana. They have legitimate legal claims to this, but I don't like having to rectify every single historical wrong. I think Guyana should keep it, and Venezuela's whole concern is seizing oil reserves that are somewhere off the coast around here. Obviously, they want that good for their economy. Guyana wants it because it would grow their economy. All right, zoom out. Display find that conflict. We got conflict all up in Africa. We have Mali, that's essentially turned into a dictatorship, but they can't even fight the terrorists in their own country. So because they went full on dictator, the local Economic Union of West Africa, ECOWAS, they're not helping Mali. They're not helping Niger because they did the same thing. Burkina Faso, like all these guys went for the military coup and dictatorship route. And so essentially you have Nigeria leading all these other countries that are kind of looking at these big three as kind of like, hey, you're going anti-democratic. And it's not like it's not like ECOWAS hasn't done regime changes in their own countries before. They have, but it's normally been smaller ones. But you got these big three ones that are banding together and they're basically going to back each other up. But they can't even defend their own countries against Islamic terrorists, so that's a problem. Sudan is obviously split in a civil war. I don't know about Chad. They might be having their own problems, though. That just adds to the list of conflict. We have giant migration crisis of Middle Easterners flooding into Europe. Europe's doing a lackluster job of getting rid of them. They should, if they were smart. The United States having doing a lackluster job of getting rid of the millions of legal immigrants coming up through our own southern border. Meanwhile, the U.S. is so mad it might decide to actually go to war with itself, which is the only way, really, that you could defeat the U.S. I mean, there are only two opponents that could 1v1 the U.S. The United States and God. Only two forces that can take on the U.S. 1 versus 1. Let's see. Beyond that, I'm having trouble coming up with more conflict, but I'm sure it exists. Anyhow, thanks for listening. Consider liking and subscribing, and hopefully we don't have to see World War break out, but you never know. We might not be that lucky. So again, I would recommend that you definitely say your prayers. And as a Christian, I'd say, definitely try to stay out of war. Don't need to be in it. Weird thing. After World War One, World War One saw massive cultural change within Europe, Western civilization. A lot of the blame was put on the traditional framework, things like the church, kind of like people stopped caring about them as much because supposedly if Western civilization was so great and Christianity was so venerated, then why is it that it let us go down the path of war? Well, the simple answer is because humans make bad decisions, right? I mean, just because, there are a lot, the people who went on the Crusades were Christians, and they did horrible things. Just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you make the right choices or that Jesus is going to wind up saving you in the end. You might be condemned, and maybe rightly so. It's not such a difficult concept for me, but not everyone gets it. But yeah, back to the end of the video. Consider liking and subscribing. Pray for peace. Prepare for war. I don't know. Part of me thinks that maybe this is the way. I mean, not to get too annoying, but God's will in a sense. I mean, I've suspected for a long time in my life that we're going to see massive change in and around the world, specifically for the purpose of changing the status quo in Israel. And this massive war that's breaking out could be the thing to do it. I don't know. The U.S. or Israel relies heavily on the U.S. and Western civilization for support, but the way this is turning out, the U.S. might be so drawn to all different parts of the world that it may become impossible. And that's assuming Joe Biden stays in office for this upcoming election. If Trump gets in, he'll probably want to pull out from all these stupid conflicts over the world, and I would agree with it. And Benjamin Netanyahu has, from what I know, not been particularly kind to Trump, so despite the fact that both would be considered right-wing, Trump may say, you know what, I don't like this guy, and may not. He may put down or trash the name of Netanyahu. We don't know. We do not know. But in any case, third time trying to end this video. Stay safe, say your prayers, remain good Christians. Thanks and bye.